VHF frequency can change when you push on the training mode on the GTN2. Okay, quickly.
So we have here, you have the cockpit, which is like this. And what happened several times to my colleagues, and it happened once as well to me, we had, when you push here, since it's quite close, it happened that they touch here as well, and the frequency scroll, okay? So that's why they said, okay, be careful when you push training mode, not to sweep the frequency here on the GTN2. So I personally found a very easy way. I put the same frequency on the standby and the active, so even if I scroll it unintentionally, I'm still on the radio frequency. I'm selected to be in, because the problem if you're on the tower and you scroll and you're on the ground, and the tower is calling you, you may have some problem. So by setting up and down the same frequency, even if you scroll, you are still on the same frequency. So this for me is just a hint you can have as an instructor. Okay, when I train an instructor, I can put the same frequency up and down, and then you are sure to have.
I think we didn't have any time this problem with when I flew with you. I think I don't remember this. Okay. At the safe altitude, the autopilot upper mode can be used to reduce the workload during the analysis and single engine emergency shutdown procedure. Okay, so at safe altitude, the upper mode, it means that when you arrive at 1,000 feet, you manage everything to recovery mode, and we can manage what we have to do. Okay, reduce airspeed below transitional lift only when in ground effect, with maximum all-up weight or Cat A training, determine precisely your OEI training weight. If equipped with ACS, stay at least 50 kilograms below the calculated OE training weight, then it can remain switched on.
Air condition normally is air condition and heating system normally have to be turned off when you do training mode, because when you do a training mode, you don't have an engine going below 50%, so you don't have the engine fail quotient, so you don't have any the connection of the high load consumer, like or the heating system is not turned off automatically. Therefore, you have some additional consumer which are not normally not supplied on the real failure. That's why we have to make sure that those consumers are not working. So if you are doing a training in Russia, it's minus 20 degrees, and you say no heating system, after 5 minutes it's completely mist and you cannot start. So that's why we use heating system, because we need to take mist, but we reduce the weight by 50 kilograms, which correspond to the power required by the systems which are normally turned off in the real performance. Clear?
Changing the training mode before OEI training is not required. However, with max all-up weight, it is recommended. I do it all the time. You remember, before starting OEI procedure, I check the training mode. I prefer to do it. But for OEI demo, by the instructor close the ground, the cyclic can be controlled by his left hand while activating the training mode. Okay?
So honestly,
yes.
The most important is the collective, not the cyclic.
Exactly.
Collective
because you are close the ground.
You can do with your knees. It's easy to avoid something with your knees, but the most important is the collective. So either you ask the trainee, because maybe he's qualified enough. If you are doing the OEI, normally he knows how to take off. So you can say, okay, you have the control, and during takeoff I push. I I have my hand on the collective and my knees are close to the cyclic, just to, for the 1 second, I need to bring back my right hand is sufficient. It's up to you. So this is an advice from Airbus that you can do.
Activation of the training mode with the right hand without hand over the cyclic is also possible. For type rating instructor training, both possible solutions should be discussed. It's what we are doing. Okay? After you have to decide together how you are going to manage the OEI. Caution, the blue line always represents the real 30 seconds OEI power.
And one more time, there is nothing written on the manual saying that you have to push on the right hand and put the left hand on the cyclic. If you decide to do differently, it's your decision. As long as a captain you are doing something which is not stupid. So you have to make sure that the solution you have found is, you can discuss together. Maybe some guys will prefer to close the hand, some guys will prefer to do like this. I think it's each instructor needs to feel comfortable with the procedure. But don't invent something that nobody share with you.
When you are in flight, when you are going up or going backward on VTOL 1, VTOL 2, VTOL 3, I think it's not a problem. But when you are close to the ground, it's a little bit more tricky.
Anyway, you have a safety device. As soon as the rotor speed drops down too much,
yes,
then the training mode will deactivate automatically, and both engine will bring back the rotor speed within limits
immediately.
So this sounds quite nice, but be careful, because this is as well the job of the aircraft, of the FADEC, is to save the aircraft, not to protect against overflight. So you have 10 seconds during which one the torque is limited to times 77%. After 10 seconds, there is no limit. If it's 100 off both engine, the FADEC will bring back the rotor speed. Maybe you will have to change the main gearbox, but it will avoid the crash. The priority is to save the aircraft. So if you have a training terminated, the caution is training aborted, not training abort, or something like this.
Right.
So when you see that, okay, if you can lower collective to make sure that you make it easy to recover the rotor speed. So the worst is when you have a training abort during a landing, because you cannot do it. We were used to do the demonstration during the TRI course by the past. Now it's more or less forbidden by Airbus. But we always do it during takeoff. During takeoff, you pull, the rotor speed goes down, then the system deactivated, then you have a chance to lower quality to allow the rotor speed to increase without requiring too much torque. But the purpose is safety. It doesn't care about accidents. We have 10 seconds where it will be protected, so you have 10 seconds to make sure that you can speed up lower quality. Okay? This system will normally help you to not crash.
The moment when you can have this 195% is when we are in VTOL 1 or VTOL 2 takeoff and OEI. You remember? After TDP, you are pulling power, nose down to accelerate and to go on. And if you pull a little too much, you can. It was with you. We can hear the RPM beep 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 beep. You don't remember? It was we squeeze on VTOL 1, VTOL 2. OEI after TDP. Okay? Just after 101 feet. Nose down and training mode. And at this time, if you pull too much on the collective, you have the RPM decreasing, and we can hear beep 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 beep. And we have, with you it was 97 or something like that. Okay, and you have to slow down the collective anyway to let the RPM increase.
The goal of this aircraft, when we have these audio warnings, is just to help the pilot to fly looking outside to overtake and avoid obstacles, while respecting the low rotor speed value. So the PDP is just to tell you guys, now we are reaching the lower range. So lower limit collective. But as long as you don't hear beep beep beep, you can pull. And if you hear beep beep beep, okay, it's not the end of the world. You just have to release the pressure. So by chance, don't hear it for beep beep beep. Then if you need power, you can pull a little bit again This is just an audio information about your position of collective. So it's not a problem to hit VBB. It's a problem to reset the VBB, which is normally not the procedure, or to continue to pull if you hear VBB. If you don't decrease, at least stop pulling when you hear VBB.
OEI demonstration and OEI behavior. A line FLI and blue line at indicated airspeed less than Vy and at low density at altitude. Instructor pilot activates training mode. FLI shows. Thank you. Ouais, attends, taille là.
Bataille en face, l'autre squadron.
Go to the 225. No, to the spider. So, activate training mode. FLI show OEI 30 seconds power. Pull smoothly collective until low RPM audio is hard. Lower collective until N2 NRO is recovered. Push stopping button to set stopping triangle 2-minute power. If RPM drops again, lower collective to recover. Lower collective further to OEI MCP and watch the triangle jumps back to 30 second limits.
So cat A topping button is normally part of the cat A training. So if you want to demonstrate, it's your decision. So it's that's why we normally do not demonstrate it during the training in Germany. I guess nobody spoke about the topping push button during this training because it's part of the cat A training. Again, topping has been developed to allow the pilot to look outside without being allowed to change from OEI high to OEI low, without requiring from him to look inside and unload power. So this is why we have the topping and we have the BBB, to just manage OEI without looking inside. Okay? But it's mainly for OEI, BBB is for OEI, and topping is for Cat A, to go from OEI high to OEI low, because normally when you have the failure before or after the TDP, you only use OEI high from the moment of the failure until the moment you have PTOS. As soon as you have PTOS, you are normally meant to go to OEI low, so push stopping when you look at A, and then you continue with OEI low until you have reached 200 feet. You speed up to VY. When you have VY positive flag, then you lower OEI continuous. This is the normal way of doing it.
No, don't forget, when you push on topping, check the triangle went down, okay? Because all the time you push, it's going up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, okay? And sometimes you are searching and you are pushing on it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. No. And 1 time and triangle down.
And when you push topping, say on your mind topping. Because if you push less than 0.3 seconds, you will have a fabric discrepancy. If you push more than 3 seconds, you will have as well a fabric discrepancy. Less than 0.3 seconds, the system will consider that could be a spark on the wires. More than 3 seconds, he considers the switch is stuck. So then you have no choice, you have to land. Maybe by the past we were resetting the fabric, but it's not possible anymore. So now we have to shut down and restart to get rid of the fabric wheel.
So avoid to perform topping demonstration in level altitude with high speed. Dropping the NR, so try to keep more than 92%. If you go to 92%, I think you are going to pull in like an elephant.
But this can be used if you want to demonstrate the countdown, the beep, everything you can do because it's a training mode, definitely not an accident. So if you want, you can stay in hover OEI high during 40 seconds. You will have all the display, all the bomb, everything. When you lower, finish. no accidents recorded. In training mode. If you do the same with the real engine, it's not an accident story.
So exceeding the 30 seconds or 2 minutes time limit will be indicated with the respective audio signal. Since the training mode is active, this is not counted as another limit. Okay, it's exactly what Florian said a few minutes just now. Okay, you don't have any exceedance. If the training mode was automatically aborted due to the low RPM, the RPM recovery is shortly limited to protect another torque. However, it's exactly what he explained 2 minutes ago, okay? However, whenever possible, try to lower collective. If not, another torque might occur. Okay for this? OEI in cruise, with OEI landing. IP activate training mode on downwind, perform engine failure analysis, simulate engine emergency shutdown procedure, continue standard traffic pattern observing OEI, VNE and power limits. On final shallow approach descent with 40 knots and rate of descent around 300 feet. You know that. Adjust pitch attitude to 10 degrees and maintain. Come to hover if possible and land. It's exactly what I explained to you last week when we performed the fire exercise in downwind before landing. Depend of your performances, but maybe you cannot land with hovering. So you have to call the ATC and to say, okay, I have an engine fire, I don't have the in-ground effect performances, and so I need a running landing. It's not the same than a landing with hovering. It's completely different, okay? Avoid high rate of descent. Of course, we are OEI. At any stage during the approach, excessive nose up during flare and just prior to touchdown, any cyclic inputs after touchdown. All OEI landings are to be performed with minimum touchdown speed, if possible out of hover. But as I explained to you, the same. If you don't have the performance, it's always better to have a small ground speed because it's easier and to avoid to damage the helicopter and maybe to make a rollover. It's easier to land with a small running landing than to land like this because you don't have any power, not enough power. Okay, and you find the skids here.
There is something else we can do it. The problem is the skids are not so well protected. But the biggest problem is the mass moment. When you do a running landing, the tendency of the pilots is to bring the cyclic to the belly to slow down.
Yes.
And then lower the collective, and you are sure that your aircraft will be grounded because of mass moment accidents. So that's why we are fighting in Germany to make sure that we don't really care about doing OEI during a couple of seconds, first of all because we have the training mode, and it's better to have a 10-second OEI burn on one engine than to have a mass moment accidents and you have to change the rotor mass, okay? Because this is quite obvious. Each time you are coming here, you have nice nozzle attitude, then you touch, and the guys are lowering the collective without bringing the cyclic to the standard position. That's why we fight to have stop the aircraft before touching the ground. Okay? If you have a mass moment, it will be much lower. If you do like this, because maybe you will just keep the position and lower collective, it will not have a position to slow down.
Okay, so the bumper strike is at 12 degrees north while touching ground. You remember this? If upper mode are engaged, first reaction shall be to adjust adequate speed. Indicate example set 70 knots for heavy aircraft using cyclic big trim. Okay? Good. What is the problem?
Just reading.
Sorry?
I'm just waiting for, yeah.
It's okay? So after we are during approach before LDP go round, so we have the speed, we just have to reach 40 knots,
Yes.
pull the collective,
Not asking, not asking.
and then set VY and climb to safe altitude and so on.
Hold on.
Not complicate this one, you know. Nothing special for this one. After TDP, after LDP, so landing, just to check, maintain rate of descent at 300, and take care, of course, of the bumper strike, otherwise the same problem.
The biggest problem during OEI is the mass moment. Because your training is focusing on the landing, then you forget the mass moment. Same for the falling failure, same for...
Voilà, c'est ici. Comme on a toujours la puissance, il faut jamais opposer.
Ah, mais ils font
Ouais, mais enfin, s'ils vont opposer,
Non.
ils vont pas te poser
Ah, non,
lycée,
non,
c'est ça que je veux dire.
Non, normalement ils font pas de poser.
Oui, c'est ce que je te dis. C'est surtout dans le posé glissé où c'est le masse moment qu'il est tordu.
Après, quand tu as des mecs qui tiennent la route, tu vas faire un démon, mais le problème,
Oui.
c'est que tu niques les patins.
Avec le 145, tu n'avais pas le choix, tu étais obligé d'aller au sol interrégional
Ah, oui,
stationnaire.
Après, parce que
Tu étais obligé de checker le masse moment, mais là, ils ont toujours la puissance.
Moi, pendant des années, j'ai fait des posés glissés, mais c'est vrai que l'intérêt est vachement...
Oui.
Le problème, c'est plus les claques de pression.
Oui. C'est pour ça, s'ils avaient une bande en herbe, ça serait bien. So for OEI on takeoff after TDP, so first adjust collective to maintain RPM, adjust collective OEI 30 seconds power or below, check VY climb to safe altitude, sorry, reduce collective to OEI MCP. Limits performance engine failure analysis, simulate engine and so on, and then on strength to climb out also with VTOS until clear of obstacles and VY. As I explained, the objective of the VTOS is to avoid the obstacles, okay?
You have to make clear with your training that there is a difference between best angle of climb and best rate of climb, okay? This is most of the time something which is not well understood. But the difference between best angle of climb and best rate of climb. Because the guy says, okay, I climb faster. No. You climb faster regarding the distance you have flown. This is the best angle of climb. Or you get faster regarding the time you have flown. So this is the rate of climb. The rate of climb is regarding the time. The angle of climb is regarding the distance you fly. So when you explain this to the trainee, they say, okay, at VTOS, I will have the best angle of climb, so I can overtake the obstacles. Then I speed up because my goal is to reach a safe altitude as quickly as possible. So this is really the purpose of this training. And it's quite easy to explain the handling when you have an engine failure during takeoff, because we are in hover with a certain power, certain altitude, which is neutral altitude, we don't move, and the power, we don't climb, we stay at 40. For takeoff, we push -5, and we pull 0.5. So technically, we increase the power and we increase the nose down. So what's going on? The aircraft speeds up. Okay? If you have the engine failure, you have an attitude which is bringing you speed, and you have a power which is higher than the hover power. Okay, so maybe above the blue line. So the first reaction is to lower power to protect the rotor speed. But doing that with the nose up attitude you have, aircraft will descend. Okay, because we are just initially compensating the descent by increasing power. If you lower power, aircraft will keep the nose down and descend. So the first reaction is lower power, nose up. But if you nose up too much, you have a flare effect, and you end up with low speed inside the high velocity diagram. So the goal of the nose up is just to stop the acceleration process and to help to secure your rotor speed. When you have done this, now the second one is to lower power to descend on the ground effect, because maybe you are 50 feet. So to lower collective to descend on the ground effect with a neutral attitude, and then to nose up to slow down within the remaining distance. So it's quite easy. Power nose up, power nose up. Okay, if you are high, you have to bring the aircraft down to the ground effect before you nose up again. If you are close to the ground, you can do okay, power nose up, and right away nose up power to stop. Okay, but the normal sequence is power nose up, power nose up, and nose up. The first one should not be too strong, otherwise you will bring your aircraft in a climbing deceleration phase, and then you put inside the riders the diagram.
Next one, rejected takeoff. Lower collective far enough to lead the aircraft back into the ground effect. Sometimes you forget this, okay? To reduce the nose up to reduce the speed, but you maintain the power like this. If you maintain the power on the same position, we are going to climb, okay? But the objective is to land. OEI to land before TDP, of course, the objective is landing. So if you want to land, at the moment you have to push on the collective.
And even though you don't want to go on a high velocity diagram, you have single engine, so it's something you have to avoid.
Yeah, exactly. Avoid quick and abrupt control inputs, wrong sequences of control inputs, flare first, risk of falling out of the transitional lift while being above the ground effect, resulting in high rate of descent. Avoid setting max power right after engine failure. This only switches the procedure and the accelerate stop distance. Excessive nose up during flare and just prior to touchdown. Any cyclic inputs after touchdown. All the time the bumper strike. You check with this. So for the Cat A clear and report procedure, IP activates training mode just before TDP. Start a constant attitude flare with 10-15 degrees nose up. Pass through transitional lift when approaching the ground effect. Reduce nose up. Attitude below 10 feet to 10 degrees and come a complete stop on the ground. Okay. OEI in ground effect with flyaway. Establish hovering outbound effect 200 feet in headwind. Hovering 200 feet, okay, headwind. Perform analysis and briefing whether to fly away or to land. So you can do the two. In Germany, I suppose you do both exercise. One you go around and one you land. And you did it with me again.
Of course, if the decision height is 120 feet, you are not going to demonstrate this exercise at 100 and go wrong. You have to be logic. You have to be above 120 if you want to go wrong.
So training mode lower nose 15 degrees, sorry, below horizon, and adjust collective smoothly to maintain NRO. When I indicated airspeed is live, remember when you can see the yellow needle increasing, nose up to stop the acceleration and reach the VTOS, okay? So adjust to 2-minute power, then accelerate to VY and climb to safe altitude, and you can use Maria recovery after joining the safety altitude. So same, avoid quick and abrupt control inputs, of course, lowering collective too far, too high rate of descent, take care of this. Not enough nose down, so the speed is not increasing. Too much nose down, so opposite, of course. You increase the rate of descent. Descending too long. Performing engine failure analysis and simulation of engine emergency shutdown procedure before reaching safe altitude. First, what I have to do step by step, 1,000 feet, 5 VY and MCPOEI. And after, okay, now I'm checking.
Something which is not written, I mentioned it already. Make sure that you are nosing down before you lower quality. Okay? Otherwise, you will reduce the efficiency of the rotor. So it is something when you nose down, you have to first nose down before you
Use the max allowed values as described in the flight manual and display on the FLI. Immediate collective action is only necessary if an arrow groups. In case of obstacles in the climb out path, the use of VTOS instead of VY ensures the base climb gradient. It's why I explained to you, okay, 40 knots, I'm still climbing, yes, I can reach 65. If you are not climbing, no need to take 65 because you will not climb more than with the VTOS, okay? And I explained to you all the time you want to push on topping, yes. You have to push on topping, but first, I'm climbing, it's okay, no obstacles. If you need 29 seconds to avoid the obstacles, use 29 seconds. If you need 1 minute and 59 seconds to join your altitude, use it.
It's even worse. In the category B, they don't even mention the topping. So you are technically allowed for all the takeoff with the OER. And when you have the flashing limit, then you have to lower. So this is the way you fly over in Cat B. You pull what you need. When it flashes, you have to follow the limitation.
So the 30, exactly what I said, the 30 seconds power might be needed to overcome critical situations. If you need, you need. Okay? If you have passed VTOS and positive climb, adjust to minutes power, of course. Use off-topping pro. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire PV?
Power.
Non, PB.
Push button.
Use the topping PB is push button, sorry. Is helpful to adjust to 2-minute power or below when on a safe climb out.
Yeah, but this is normally something which should not be written because we have this is written category B, it's not category A. So there we have a mix of cat A, cat B. Remember that it's for instructors.
So OEI outbound effect above the takeoff, okay? So exactly the same than on VTOS, on VTOL 1 or 2, okay? So what we have to do to join the ground? So lower nose 10 degrees, below horizon depending on obstacle situation, and lower collective smoothly and set max OEI power. So I explained the objective is to join the pass and to land. Okay, so nose down up to reach the hovering altitude, the descent altitude, and with the power manage my rate of descent, looking outside for my ground speed and inside my rate of descent, okay? The same, you have to avoid the same that the other one. And on the right, nothing special. With 145 with maximum gross time. Okay, with maximum gross mass, the height above ground level between 40 and 60 is most critical. OEI during steep approach after LDP, perform steep approach in accordance to steep approach, IP activate training mode, collective adjust rate of descent, landing attitude, establish and landing. Okay, maintain the path, nothing change. In the reality, it will depend of your weight, temperature, and so on, of course. Avoid excessive rate of descent, and NRO group. Any big attitude change. Avoid to change the attitude of the helicopter like this, okay? Monitor wind on final. Even a slight tail wind can lead to a hard landing. Sometimes we land here on 1.6 and the wind is coming a little bit from the right and from the tailwind, so take care of this. Okay? Air restart, we don't do it in flight. We can simulate it on ground or on the simulator. Auto rotation. So, step 1, auto-rotative descent. Establish the level flight at safe height, minimum 3,000 feet. With 240% of torque, you set the decision height to 1,000 feet. First, one engine on idle. Then perform simulated OEI emergency jump shutdown, and set the second engine to idle, enter in auto rotation. Tu rentres en auto rotation après le premier déjà, tu commences pas à baisser le point, tu gardes le pas. Oui, c'est ça.
So this is the theory, but then there is a scenario you have to create, because it's just repeating something like a theory. It's first of all, it's a little bit, just remember, it's stressful for the trainee, but he knows that you are going to descend with no engine. So first of all, he will not feel very comfortable. So if you do something which has no logic, he will be a bit lost. So for those who have done it here during the training, try to find a scenario which is consistent. So I personally, it's a scenario which is, I think, quite correct, but you can choose another one. I am flying normal flight, level flight, 110 110 knots. And then I say I have a fuel filter plug-in caution. The flight manuals tell you fuel filter plug-in, be ready for an engine failure. Okay, so what would you do when you have an engine failure to expect? You lower collective, because except if you are really in a rush, you will keep it crossing fingers that you don't lose it. But if you have to expect a failure, most likely you expect the failure, you go to OEI flight condition established, like it's written on the flight manual. OEI flight condition established can be set after a failure or before a failure when you expect the failure. So OEI flight condition established will already bring you below 2 times 40%. Because you have to set the power which is compatible with one engine flight. So 2 times 40 is 80, you have 9% margin. Most likely you will not enter OEI if you lose one engine. I personally take a little bit more margin. I put 2 times 35 because sometimes when the OEI goes to 103, there is a demand of power, which is not the same as the one you had before, so I still put a margin. Then I bring one engine to idle, and I have single engine condition below OEI, because you are not allowed to have any OEI during training. It's not a real situation, it's a training, so you have to protect the aircraft. And then I say, okay, now we have the second fuel filter plug-in caution. So procedure tells you be ready for second engine failure. Okay? What do? You lower a little bit more. First of all, because OEI VNE is 110, so if you expect to be OEI, you have to be below 110 for the first engine. OEI auto-rotation, VNE auto-rotation is 90. So you have to expect to be maybe below 90. So you have a little bit, I personally put 90, so you still have a little bit of flare effect. If you really need to recover the rotor speed, don't go directly to 60 because if the rotor speed drops down and you have to flare to bring it back, you will be below the minimum speed, okay? So 90 is quite good because you still have 20 knots energy you can use to recover the rotor speed, and you are still below 70. And then, okay, make sure that you're ready, your training is not too scared or a little bit panic, okay? So in this case, you say, okay guys, don't worry, I'm helping you, it's just to show you how we descend, how much you have to enter auto rotation. The rotor speed is not going like this, it goes quite nicely, okay. You are ready, 3, 2, and don't do it, okay, 1, 2, and no. He needs to be ready, it's quite stressful. Even for an instructor, it's not a situation which is, even you have done a lot, it's always something you know what is behind. You are going to fly without power. So it's something it's quite risky, not dangerous, but risky. So make sure that everybody is ventilated and ready. When everybody is ready, then you bring it to idle. And then just to show, okay, rotor speed drop down, you lower collective, you nose up a little bit, and when you establish everything, you pay attention, use the upper mode, decouple first, and then re-engage the X speed, 70 knots, the track, so you can turn into the wind. And the only thing you have to do is to concentrate on the rotor speed. Beep, 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 lower, beep, 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 pull. Okay, this is the purpose of this exercise, to know at which speed we have to enter. Not to smash the collective and pull, otherwise you will have an overspeed. Not too slow, otherwise you'll be an underspeed. The minimum is 85% rotor speed. We always, all the instructors in Germany, we have our own limit, which is 90. So we want to have some margin because, okay, we have a job, it's 85 plus 2 knots per kid and 1 for the wife. So if you have 2 kids, it's 90. Okay, so this is just to show we are not going to fly the rotation down to the ground. Okay? So it's just to show that we can do it nicely and gently. It's not something you are dead because you have lost 2 engines. You can still survive. Okay? So this is something which must be done in a way which is not increasing the stress, which is not increasing the risk for you to lose rotor speed and to crash or to get overspeed. Okay, so this is something which is to be done gently, slowly, with taking care of the stress of your training. Okay? But use a scenario. Using a scenario is something which gives, and first of all, why do we do this exercise? Because if you have fuel clogging, most likely you will clog both engines. We have 2 fuel tanks, supply tanks, but they are all spinning the fuel on the same main tank. So you have a pollution on the main tank. I'm sorry, we have redundant fuel system, but up to a certain point, because the fuel is coming from the main tank. So, okay, that's the way I do it. I've repeated with 4 or 5 guys, I think I've done it. So it's something you can do it. It's not dangerous, but you have to be aware of the risk. You have turbulence and all these kind of things. You have to be patient, aware.
So don't forget passing 1,000 feet ground, engine on, okay, to be sure, and you end the exercise at 500 feet ground and go on.
I would even say before you apply collective, I always now make a pre-takeoff check before I apply. No warning, no caution, TMPs before I apply. Because it happened to me before I was inspector in Germany. I forgot to bring the switches flight, and I had up doing a real auto rotation. So now I can tell you at 1,000 feet before I touch anything, okay, no warning, no caution, TMPs. So if you have a low NR or if you have idle, okay, don't apply power. You have missed to bring something to fly. Okay?
And the most important is this. Only perform this maneuver in an appropriate landing seat
Yeah.
is available. So you don't do it in the middle of nowhere, in the mountain or I don't know.
About the
Of
delays
course,
or-
all the time you do this
Oh, yeah.
on an airport or airfield.
Yeah,
In
here,
case of,
here on the area, I don't know the name, because you have many rows, many fields, so it's normally possible to hand up on the field with an auto rotation. If for some reason, just when you bring the engine, double failure, you must be able to finish your auto rotation on an acceptable spot. So we have many roads, we have many paths and something like this, or even rice field. Okay. You will have to carry me because I don't want to wet my shoes.
okay, for this, so this is not the auto rotation emergency procedure. Okay, the purpose is just familiarization with the rotor speed characteristic, demonstration of the NRO high and low RPM warning. That's all. The next one, this one. Auto rotation step 2. So perform straight in auto rotation only and perform power on auto rotation only. So radio altimeter adjust to 150 feet. Decision height. Okay? Ouais, c'est trop. Moi je vais faire ça, c'est trop. I think we discussed with Florian. For me, I think 150 is too much. It's too high.
First of all, flight manual tells you around 100 feet.
Yes.
So it gives you some flexibility if you want to. I personally fly my auto rotation 120, but it's my choice. So it's not going against the flight manual because flight manual doesn't tell you 100. It's around 100 because of the weight, because of the temperature, because of the wind, because of many things. So when you start the exercise, I personally tell the guy, okay, try 100, 120, 150 if you want. But for me, 150 is too high.
Look. Radio altimeter adjust 150 feet. At 100 feet, start 20 degrees nose up.
Yeah,
Welcome in Germany.
Now, this has
It's a
some
job.
logic. This has some logic.
It's just to wake up.
It depends how you fly your auto rotation. If you fly looking outside, which should normally be, having some spot inside to make sure that your rotor speed and your airspeed is correct, you could be awake by the tension you have, but I can tell you with the stress, nobody will hear it. Okay? You already have the 100 feet. So most of the pilots, even more the instructor, we are doing the rotation with one height outside, one height inside. So we are checking, and I can tell you I've set 120, and I count down 300, 200, okay, 120, 120 flare. So you hear flare, you are ready to flare, but you finally flare at 100. But you are anticipating. If you wait 100, you will start flaring at 70, 80, which start being a little bit low. But 150, if your trainee is looking inside, he will start flaring. At 150, it's okay if you want to stop at 50 feet. But I think that monkey see, monkey do. If you train your guy to do it at 150, if one day he has to fly an auto rotation, he will end up at 50 feet with no more rotor speed and he will smash on the ground. So I prefer take some risk as instructor because okay, you have the rotor speed, you have the nose up attitude with the bumper, but it's my duty to take risk to train the guys the most efficiently. So if he has to fly it, he has a chance to survive. So I accept those risks, and I will personally always fly my auto rotation at 120 to anticipate because you have to wait. First, your trainees, you have to tell them 120, you flare. And you flare 20, and that's it. And when you see nothing moving, pull power, pull lever. Okay, because you guys have no experience. So you must make an automatic auto rotation. The guy must be an automatic function of the autopilot. When they will be more experienced, if they come back in 5, 6, 10 years as instructor here, then they will fly their auto rotation. If we fly auto rotation together, I will ask you to feel it, to fly it. I personally start my auto rotation 120 to feel the reaction of the flare. Is the flare efficient? Is the flare a little bit weak? So I have to increase my nozzle to stop the aircraft. Is the aircraft very light and it's quite cold? As soon as I nozzle, the aircraft stops, so I have to slow down my flare. So you adapt your flare to the situation. This is not the same way of doing an auto rotation when you are a beginner and when you are an experienced pilot. So 150 is, I agree with GB, is way too high for me. 100 is a good compromise because you can no rush, no stress of the ground coming quickly, and you can adapt a little bit the nozzle attitude to the situation. And anyway, the goal is to end up at 20 feet, 20 degrees, nozzle, and wait until the aircraft starts descending to apply power and nozzle.
Okay, level flight 1000 ground minimum. Okay, forget 500 feet, it's not enough. Around 100 knots. If applicable, press H toes to mute the Shannon. Pull up.
You can put on standby the shot.
Yes.
It's better because it's only 5 minutes to
Yes,
move.
you can push on the red button, you remember?
Yeah.
Establish the speed 75. Check NR RPM. Keep it just above N2 indication, middle speed. Leave engine in flight. Okay? You keep flight position. Simulate double engine emergency shutdown drill. Simulate mayday call, instruction for passengers if time permits. 100 feet start nose up for the flare. And a lower collective to continue descent. When you feel the helicopter going down, you stop it with power and then level and caution the landing. Of course, it's with power recovery. Okay, avoid reducing the speed below 60 knots. Avoid the significant attitude changes shortly before commencing the flare, so try to maintain your attitude. 75. Any climb during the flare. Commencing the flare too low with a high nose up attitude, you can hit the bumper, of course.
Anyway, if you flare too low, okay, consider the exercise is lost. So you just apply power and just go wrong because it could be possible to flare an auto rotation like this on the runway. So you go with high speed because it will be a high speed auto rotation. You are too low to nose up. So you will lower nose up, and you will finish to perform a running landing with 40 knots. If you're on the runway, why not? It can be. But if it's on the short field, okay, then you are in trouble. What I'm not really happy with is the 1,000 feet, yes, which is a minimum to have enough time and to do it with a certain process. 500 feet is written here because in Germany, sometimes we were not allowed to go to 1,000, therefore we had to be protected. So it's authorized, if possible, 1,000, but if not, then minimum is 500 because in matching the minimum pattern is 500, but honestly it's negative standing because for your training 500 feet is definitely not enough. What I'm not happy with is 100 knots. Okay, 100 knots is because some people who wrote this exercise were still thinking about auto rotation entry. Okay, but okay, full auto rotation. You are not flying at 1,000 feet and you lose both engine and you do your auto rotation. When do you perform an auto rotation like this? This is the last step of the auto rotation in high altitude. You lose one engine, two engine, so you already have 70 knots. So no need to go the. So it's a little bit a step of If you lose both engine, you have the auto-rotation. But we never leave both, lose both engine on the same time. So 100 knots is some remaining mistakes from the past. Because if you perform an intentional auto-rotation, why? Tail rotor, right shaft failure, or the end of the auto-rotation from high. So you already have 70 knots. Don't increase the level of difficulty to your training to perform this auto-rotation entry to end up at 75 knots to fly the auto-rotation. So you can tell him, okay, set directly 75, 80 knots. When you have the good glide, enter auto-rotation, because otherwise you have to train him 100, the reference is here. Then you enter, then you have 75, then the reference is here. So it's increased the difficulty, and most of your training doesn't need to have an increased difficulty. What they are working on is, I keep 75, I lower collective, I perform my double intentional shutdown. So you don't need to enter 100 knots for this. Make it easier. So he enters, he visualizes the glide, which is very important. When he has the reference, then he enters auto-rotation nicely. Then, as I show GB, you have a way to be protected against the high speed. You said torque, VMS, torque 1 and 1% or 2%, 0%, we don't care. So you just at the limit of the power required by the engine. So you can even go to idle for demonstration, but usually you don't do it because they will do it. So you go to idle to demonstrate that this process is ensuring you to have the minimum power for the descent, establish an auto-rotation. Then, if you are still making the landing spot in the real life off, instead of going from flight to off, then if you are not well set, your rotor speed goes down, you have to lower collective, then you are not taking anymore your airport, and it's too late to restart. So better to go from flight to idle, make sure everything is still conform and safe, and then off. Okay. For training, we just mentioned idle, everything steady, making my airport off. Okay, that's the process. And then engine are both flight. You have 1 and 1% torque. Your rate of descent is the easiest one because the minimum one without losing airspeed, the best one you can have in the real life with a minimum rate of descent. And then you wait 300, 200, 150, 120. Nicely, and most of the time the rotor speed will not go up. Be clear with your training. During the descent, the rotor speed is his duty. During the flare, the rotor speed is your responsibility. We don't want the training to kill the rotor speed during the flare. In the real life, we don't care about overspeed. In the real life, you can have an incidence of rotor speed in the flare. Good, you have more rotor speed afterwards. For training, we are not allowed. So the rotor speed management is an instructor business. Okay?
Additional hint for the student instructor: it is very unlikely that both engines will lose power exactly at the same time. However, this procedure may become necessary in case of tail rotor failure. Single pilot operation, setting emergency shed bus during auto-rotation descent out of low VFR altitude is not recommended. Closing the emergency fuel valves could be an additional safety factor if time permits. Proper pedal work to align the helicopter during the whole procedure with landing area. Training area of special emphasis, NRO control, setting the correct flare attitude progressive, not aggressive. IP always to be attentive on the control, of course. Adjust the landing altitude early enough to avoid bumper impacts. And of course, if it is not necessary to reach a predefined spot. Okay, so you do it on the runway and you finish where you finish.
Yes, but we have there is a philosophy in Airbus which is to train the training to stop the auto-rotation, because except if it's an intentional auto-rotation, then you will select an airport with a long runway, with the wind from the right, and you will inform everybody, the tower, the passenger, and so on. You don't care about 100 meters. You aim the middle of the runway. If you are short, if you are long, you are still okay. But if we consider the auto-rotation, you are flying from here to piston lock, and then you lose one engine, you lose the second engine, okay. Maybe you don't have a runway underneath. So on the principle of the training, we always highlight the necessity to be able to make a stop auto-rotation. Stop auto-rotation is you go to 20 degrees, like I explained, you keep it to slow down the aircraft. When the aircraft start descending, we keep 20 and we apply power to stop as much as possible. And when the aircraft is almost stopped, we bring level, like we have done in ILC. Okay, this is exactly the same principle. This allows you to, if you are in the middle of nowhere and you have a short field and you are lucky to end up on the field, to have a chance not to crash on the obstacles. Because having speed for the landing is the best way you can have. Because the landing will be smooth and you will, but we don't have this luxury always. Sometimes you have a short distance and the aircraft are not protected for horizontal impact. They are accepting a very high 6 meters per second without deformation on the skids, but the seats are accepting everything. But on horizontal crash, you have only 2 millimeters of acrylic glass, so it's not protecting you at all. It's a little bit thicker than the bottom. So the choice in Airbus is to work now on auto-rotation, a little bit more stop. So if you smash on the ground, we don't care. The aircraft will accept, the skid will be bent and the seat will be accepted. But if you crash on an obstacle on the tree because you are too long and you didn't stop your aircraft, it's a little bit more problematic. So that's why, even if, yes, we don't need to stop on the specific point, during the training, it's good as well to tell the trainer, okay, now we work only on the last 300 meters, 200 meters, 100 meters of the runway to make sure that he's able to enhance his accuracy on the final point and to be able to stop. And again, what I said this morning is the concept is clear in your mind. I've done it with pilot in Germany, telling me, okay, we have obstacle, we do, the guy was always doing with speed. Okay, so I said, okay, when I tell we have to stop because we have obstacle, we have a runway. So of course he doesn't see the obstacle. So I went to the dropping area and I've done an auto-rotation in front of the trees. And I tell you, he stopped the aircraft because he sees the obstacle. So you really have to find out as well in your exercise organization an area where the runway is really a little bit short. You don't care you have the engine. If it's too long, you pull power and go long, okay? But you have to position your trainer as well in a situation where he sees the necessity to stop the auto-rotation, okay?
Okay, 10 minutes, guy.
I
For
have
Antoine.
a question. Do you have the recommend aircraft reference before we doing the auto rotation?
The recommended aircraft?
Aircraft reference. When some kind of like a key point before we doing the auto rotation. Do you have the recommended about that?
No, the only thing I could recommend is the weight. But since on the real life you never know what will be the weight.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, for training, it's better to be a bit lighter because heavier you are, more energy you have, and more rotor speed you have. So, of course, I don't really ask a specific weight. My aircraft for training are always maximum weight. Okay, because I need to train the guys with a limited power. Nevertheless, what is important to show the trainee is the reference point for the distance. This is a little bit depending on your weight and the temperature and the wind. Be careful, the wind can really change a lot of the glide. So it's really important to have a kind of average glide where you, between here and here, I should finish between this and this point, and to be very sharp on the process. I enter, I establish my speed, I lower collective, I keep my speed constant. When my speed is constant, my power is low. Okay, idle, no change of rotor speed, no change of glide, no change of everything. Off, weight 500 and no more correction of speed. Be very careful. They will always lose their speed below 300 feet. So you can be ready. Below 300, they will lose only 10 knots. Up to 60 knots, it's still possible to flare. I personally, if I have to fly on rotation, I would be at 60 knots because the aircraft is much easier to stop and the flare is still very efficient. Flight manual says 75, so I do the training at 75. But if you repeat this, I don't think you need a specific weight, you need a specific characteristic for the aircraft because maybe you train one day it's 40 degrees outside, maybe you train one day it's 27 degrees outside. This will change a lot the reaction of your aircraft. So I would say if you really have to fly with 40 degrees, I would personally reduce the weight by 100 or 200 kilograms to make sure I'm not too heavy to be able to stop it. But it's not something we really have some constraint or some rules in Airbus. In Airbus, we always put the aircraft full fuel and we put the trainees. We are always below the max takeoff weight. With 2 or 3 guys on board, you never reach. If you want to fly the max takeoff weight, you have to put some lead backs. So technically, there is no specific recommendation for this exercise. And there is one. You instructor, you always demonstrate the first one. Always. If it's a single engine, you never do a full auto rotation without having done a power on recovery first. You always try it, and always the instructor tries the first one as a refresher, as a demo, and for you to feel if the aircraft is reacting well, non-well, the rotor speed are quite sensitive or not. So you know then what to focus on during the training repetition. Clear?
Okay, 10 minutes, guys.